Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to another beautiful night of Breakout Racing League Formula One Tier 1. I'm sorry that I have not been able to join you for the past few weeks. I've had a lot going on here in the lovely state of Arkansas. But we're here tonight for what should be a beautiful Belgian Grand Prix. The Tier 1 guys have been working really hard throughout this week because I believe this is going to be a lot closer up at the point than what it has been in some other races where we've seen DRC Jared or the likes of NZL Ryan, both of those two drivers in the Mercedes camp pulling away. I believe it's going to be a lot closer this time around. But joining me tonight in the booth is a lovely gentleman that goes by the name of Rick James. Rick, thank you for joining us. So we're back live now, having some technical issues. I apologize for that. We're not sure what's going on with that. Must be something to do with my old console, and I need to get a new one. But you can see on your screen the Mercedes boys working together as Master Berserk goes very deep after his teammate Ryan gave him a great tow down down Kemmel Straight. We're going to see a lot of that, wouldn't you think, James, that we're going to see a lot of teams trying to work together to set the best possible qualifying time?
We're going to see teams that are going to try to leapfrog each other. We're going to see teams that really try to use the Kemmel Straight not only as an overtake, but as a great way to set a hot lap. Now, we can also see teams trying to use the draft and use DRS to their maximum ability, but the Kemmel Straight means nothing if you can't get the corners right through Bruzel, Pouan, and then Stavilo, that very long sweeping section where one wrong move could destroy your entire lap. BRL Neymar coming through chicane to finish his first lap will set the benchmark for the remaining drivers in the last 14 minutes of the qualifying session. 141.80 is that time, and now Chandler Stata sets a 141.14 and goes top of the board.
Yeah, I was going to state, just as you were coming back in, that time was not going to hold up for long. That time is probably almost a second off what I believe pole is going to be for this qualifying session. I'm expecting somebody to run a 141 flat or to go into the sub 40 ones. Somebody, whether it be Ryan or DRC Jared or possibly Chandler or Pirandi, one of those four, I guarantee you, is going to get down to probably a 140.9 or a 140.8. But it wouldn't surprise me if we saw that. We're just looking down the field now. Deer Hunter just set a time in the racing point of a 142.6. ABR just set a time with his Williams of a 142.3. That's good enough for third right now, but a lot of these guys probably had issues on their first run out. This is one of those tracks where there's really no way to run around it unless you're just full bore and you're stepping on the loud pedal as soon as you possibly can. So it doesn't surprise me that we're going to see quite a few cars off track during this session, as ERS Ham Newton posts his first time of a 41.8. We've got quite a few cars in the pits. DRC Jared and Boss Cookie currently on a lap. We'll ride along with DRC Jared to see how he does this lap. Oh, and he just invalidated on the exit of No Name. You got to be very careful not to get that left front or the left rear over that white line there on the curbing. It will immediately invalidate you. It's very, very fine around this track. Very, very minute as to what you can and can't do on the exit of the corners. A lot of drivers we saw in today's Tier 2 race were struggling with invalid lap times and track infractions whenever they're trying to just race around other cars. We saw quite a few drivers. BRL Skeppy, I know, had at least 2 time penalties added on to his race due to track infractions. I wonder, James, is that going to come into effect for the podium when this session ends and then the race starts? Can we see this podium today get decided by penalties?
It's always a possibility, Oliver. So, especially towards the end of the race, drivers begin to get a bit impatient. Drivers start fighting not only for the podium positions, but every point on the racetrack, as is expected. Look out for drivers to try and gain advantage through chicane, and also Radion as well on the left side of the rumble strips. Earlier in the Tier 2 race today, we saw a couple of drivers go side by side in the early laps, and it ended up in one of those drivers facing the other direction with parts left off of his race car. So the drivers will need to exercise patience, and they'll need to exercise good social distancing on the racetrack if they plan on surviving for all of today's race.
Well, and I do enjoy the pun, but as a driver myself, I wasn't able to participate in tonight's race because I had some things going on here, but I was able to watch and catch a few things happening. You know, as we see Hoopalicious going through the final chicane to start a lap, it's not uncommon to see drivers, especially down there when they're going through Blanchimont, when they go through La Source, even Radion and Eau Rouge, to make contact with another car and lose, some tertiary or secondary flaps, or even the end plate on that front wing. And that is a huge hamper to the car's ability, especially around a track like this where you're already running such low downforce. You can lose upwards of 5 seconds a lap around this track, especially once you come into Sector 2, because all of Sector 2 and a good portion of Sector 3, you have to have that front downforce. If you don't have it, you're in serious dangers. We see Hoopalicious lock up just a little bit as he goes through Bruxelles. That's not uncommon either. We're going to see a lot of drivers struggling with that right front tire. They lean on it a lot throughout this track, going through corners like Pouan, which you see on your screen now. You run through there at almost 190 mile an hour, and you're putting so much load on that right front and right rear, and you're locking up the right front at a lot of these braking zones. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see drivers having to box a little early because their tires just can't handle it anymore. Hoopalicious actually just set the new fastest time through Sector 2. We'll continue following the Red Bull as he comes down through Blanchimont. We'll see him make his way down to the final chicane, which is 19 and 20, and hopefully he can post a really decent time. Hoopalicious has been a driver that's ran up front all year, Rick. I don't know if you've really been watching what's been happening, but he has been a podium contender. And look at that, a 141.2, not even a tenth off of Chandler. So the Red Bull has showed up with pace today.
Absolutely, Oliver. Now coming out of chicane, Chandler Seta 1 into that Alfa Romeo, gets on his fast lap, not too far behind Hoopalicious, now with 8:25 left on the clock. You see he locks it up into La Source, and now he begins his mad run down into Eau Rouge. Will he hold it together? He's got the pole by a little less than 1/10 of a second, but this will be his second attempt tonight, and obviously he'll be looking to improve. You mentioned drivers locking up headed into Bruxelles. Always a problem with so much speed and momentum that gets cut off into the left-right section of Lake Holm. You have that sweeping right-hander out of Lake Holm and the downhill straight right into Bruxelles. You see Chandler gets a little out of control and down into Bruxelles, locks up that right front, but attacks the apex with fury. Now out of the left-hander and into Puan. He's on a fast lap so far. Out of Wuhan and now coming through Stavilo Alderfer. He seems to be on a blinder. He's got one more straight and then the Blanchimont curve coming up. He seems to be on the fast lap Alderfer, but he's got lap traffic or slow traffic coming up ahead. Is it going to affect his lap in any way, knowing that he's got to watch out for these opponents?
Well, most of the guys in Tier 1 are pretty respectful. You can see BRL Pirandi moves out of the way. I do kind of worry that Chandler might have lost a little bit of time on entry into No Name. We can see the rear end stepped out just a bit, but he's going to cross the line, and he's going to go 41 flat. So a great lap time from Chandler. Chandler did take a break from Breakout Racing League for a little while and has made his return really in style. He's been fighting up at the front at almost every track, just doing everything he possibly can. You can see him now being very respectful as BRL Pirandi makes his run down through Eau Rouge and coming up Radillon. He's got the Ferrari in tow right behind him. I wonder if he might be helping the Ferrari. The Ferrari catching right up to the back of him. This is really going to hurt this Ferrari's lap time. Oh, and he is helping the Ferrari. So who was that? Is that going to be, that is going to be RBM Mari, another new name. So the Ferrari driver getting help from the Renault crew. I wonder if BRL Pirandi, who is a fast driver on his own, doesn't have his teammate here tonight. Could he have been talking to the drivers in the Ferrari camp about them teaming up and working together to go against Ryan and Hoopalicious and Chandler? Oh, as RBM gets really wide, he got a lot of oversteer. Coming through Puan at 193 mile an hour was where the rear end of that car stepped out. And there it is. You can see it on the bottom of your screen. Ryan in the Mercedes just went sub 41s. I knew somebody was going to do it. Thank you, Ryan, for not making a liar out of me.
A blistering lap now with 5 minutes and counting. He goes through that Kemmel straight now, putting up a time of 1:40.82. Chandler Seda now behind him by just over 2/10 with a 1:41.074, but he's on another hot lap now coming through chicane. Alderfer, the top 5 cars separate. No, now Chandler comes down pit road, but I was just saying the top 5 cars are separated by just over 1 second there. I'm sorry, by less than 1 second, excuse me.
Yeah, they're separated by about 7/10 right now, which honestly kind of surprises me. I thought that it might be a little tighter between some of these drivers, but look at the midfield battle. There's something we haven't really talked much about. The midfield drivers, we'll say from BRL Neymar back down to Deer Hunter in 11th, so between 6th and 11th, they're all within 3/10 of each other. So you've got BRL Neymar with a 41.5 and Deer Hunter with a 41.8. You've got 5 drivers in there that are more than capable of making a lot of hardy maneuvers throughout the race. It wouldn't surprise me if we see some of them doing some really tricky strategy and some really tricky moves. We did see one driver split 2 other cars on the exit of the column and literally go 3 wide on the run down of the settle. So it doesn't surprise me that some of these guys in Tier 1 would try to do some of the same risky maneuvers, as we see quite a few drivers in pit lane right now getting those fresh sets, probably what might be their last fresh set together, as now we've got B-Dunk working with #1 FinFan. So a lot of drivers helping each other out down the Kemmel Straight today, which really surprises me. You wouldn't think that you'd see that many drivers helping each other out down the Kemmel Straight, and it seems like it's everywhere. Every team is working with every other team.
It's fantastic to see. I've got my eye on Malicious into that Red Bull. He just locks it up once again, going into Bruzel, attacked the left-hander exit of Bruzel, and now heads into Puan, where we just saw the red Ferrari of RBM Mari completely lose control and slam into the barriers. Tight and fast. Puan now making his descent into Stabilo. That bright white plane helmet just shines like a beacon from the inside of that Red Bull, attacks the apex. Now onto the right-hander through the straight and into Blanchimont. He just went purple in Sector 2. Now coming through the straight, one more left-hander before chicane, and he's currently on pace to have the fastest lap, Oliver.
Yeah, he is on pace to have the fastest lap. He's the only car that every time he's gone out and made a run in this session, he's purpled Sector 2, which makes me wonder if that Red Bull might be running a little bit more downforce than everybody else. But he's going to promote him. He's not going to promote himself any higher, but he is the only other driver to go sub 41 as of now. So the Red Bull and the Mercedes, the only two drivers to go sub 41, Hoopalicious and Ryan. So it's going to be a close fight between those two yet again. It's never a surprise to see those two fighting at the front. But let's look through the rest of the field now. We got BRL Pirandi. He's just started a lap. Looks like he's going to be getting a tow from one. It's going to be RBM in that Ferrari. He is getting a wonderful tow. He's got the car placed perfectly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. We don't know why we keep losing the stream. Not sure what's going on there. It's got to have something to do with me. But BRL Pirandi is going to cross the line, and he does go sub 141. He sets a 40.9. One driver that I'm really watching now is DRC Jared. He has not posted a lap time yet, but how many times have we seen that this season? Is he going to get help from anybody going down the Camel Straight? He does have two cars out in front of him. He's catching one car very rapidly. The Renault moves over out of the way. Hoopalicious has just retired from the session, but Jared not going to get assistance from anybody. The McLaren of B-Dunk well down the straightaway in front of him, not really going to affect the air too much to help out the Ferrari driver. But DRC Jared, one of the drivers that does have amazing pace here in Tier 1 to run up front all day, every day, all day long as he runs down, excuse me, into Roussel. He comes around now. He's going to be going through No Name. Does he step out? No. He keeps the rear end in check. That car seems to be planted very well. Makes his run down to Pouan at 191 mile an hour. He turns in, smashes the gearbox into 7th. Exits at 190, which is pretty good. Let's see how he does as he goes down through campus, making his way down to Stevelo. Really takes the RPMs up very high as his McLaren now spun out in front of him. He has now purpled Sector 2, which means he has gone faster than Hoopalicious. Will this be the new pole time? Ryan with a 140.8. Can DRC Jared, his former teammate, beat that time? Jared running right at 200 mile an hour, trying to get 201. He's going to slam on the brake pedal. He locks up the right front just a bit, but it doesn't look like he's gone deep. Looks like this is going to be a great lap time, Rick. He's going to go... I only went 141.1. I really thought he was going to be higher than that. He must be running a decent amount of downforce on that car and losing it down the straightaway. Now we have RBM Mari. Is he on the lap as well? Doesn't look like he was. Well, it looks like that's going to do it for the session, folks. That'll put, excuse me, Ryan in the Mercedes at the front of the grid, leading them down into La Source. Hopefully, everybody behind him, hopefully no chaos will ensue. It's not uncommon to see cars get into each other on the first lap going into La Source. We've seen Fernando get into Charles Leclerc and send him flying. We've seen... who was that? Max Verstappen tried to make a move on Kimi Räikkönen, and Räikkönen had no idea it was there. We had cars flying then on the exit. So hopefully everybody behind NZL Ryan can keep it clean, but your grid for the front is, well, it's disappeared now. Give me a minute and I'll tell you. So the grid at the front is going to be Ryan on pole, Hoopalicious in second. Hopefully we'll see a great fight all race long from those two. BRL Perandi, no surprise to see he and Chandler Cieta up toward the front. Jared in 5th place. BRL Williams with a great showing for Racing Point here today as he qualifies 6th. Number 1 FinFan and BRL Neymar make up row 4. And sitting just behind them is the McLaren and the Mercedes of B-Dunk and Master Berserk. Master Berserk should have a pretty good race today. He set a 141.5, which is only 7/10 off of pole. So he should stay on pace very well. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him work with his teammate to try to get toward the front. Probably some communication's going to go on between the two of them race strategy-wise. But just look at how close it was in the midfield. From 6th all the way back down to 13th was very, very close.
As expected, and that only means the competition is going to be even stiffer. As we go into La Source, you called it, Alderfer, it is one of the most dangerous corners on the track, especially at the start of this race. Drivers will need to be respectful of each other's space, but also have to maintain a modicum of attacking that corner as it's such a great overtaking point. Same goes with the left-right combo of Lacombe, and then coming out of Puhan into Campus is another great overtaking spot. So I'm expecting a couple of drivers to be very aggressive into La Source and carry a very high speed and very offensive mindset in this first lap.
Yes, it would not surprise me. You know, we've seen year in and year out that whichever car gets into La Source and exits La Source first is usually not the car leading when they make it to the end of the Kemmel Straight down into turn 7 where they get to Lacombe. The car that is out in front is really at a disadvantage. Everybody behind that car gets a massive tow because he is braking all of the air and shoving it up and out of the way for everybody behind him. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ryan had a huge challenge going down into Lacombe. We look at the pit strategy now. If you're starting on the softs, you can box for the mediums around lap 8 or 9. If you're starting on the softs, you can box for the hard compound tire around lap 6 or 7. But we have seen one driver last year, can't remember who it was, but there was one driver, I believe, in a Mercedes that boxed around lap 2 or 3 with wing damage and came back to win this race on very, very old hard tires, and they were able to make it all the way to the end from lap 2 or lap 3 by the grace of whichever deity they believe in. But we see them all now running down toward Lacombe as they're getting their tires heated up. We see a lot of cars smashing on the brake pedal. You'll see every now and then, if we can catch a glimpse of the rotors inside those wheel wells, will be glowing as they go through Lacombe from that very heavy braking that they do on the entry of turn 7. One thing I must apologize about, one person has just messaged me and told me that RBM Mary is how her name is pronounced. We have a woman racing in Breakout Racing League now in the number 61 Ferrari. So I'm really going to be watching this car for the rest of this race. I'd love to see that car make its way toward the front and score a podium. One other car to watch today, I believe, is going to be B-Dunk. I feel like B-Dunk in the McLaren is out of position. I feel like B-Dunk has a lot more pace in the car. He just wasn't able to put the perfect lap together. And B-Dunk also has amazing race pace, and he takes care of his tires very well. So it would not surprise me if we see this McLaren closer to the front. James, is there any cars that you're watching out for as they go around track now?
Every last one on medium tires, Alderfer. Every last one. You notice that the top 10 all on softs as they were locked in to those tires from the qualifying session. But now you can see 11th through 15th, except for ABR wraps 19 in 16th place in that Williams, all on medium tires. So they could be playing this long game. However, there's 22 laps in this race. We'll see who does what on their tires and which of the top 10 drivers chooses to be more conservative on those soft Pirellis. I'm also looking into the skies, Alderfer. Those gray clouds over this very long racetrack means that some parts of this racetrack may be wet while others may be dry, and that will also affect tire selection. It looks like the two of Hoopalicious is now in a position to start this race, and we're about to go lights out.
Yes, you can see that the excuse me, the Red Bulls just pulled into position. We're waiting on the lights, or I'm having a glitch, one of the two. We are still waiting on the lights to go red. There we go. We've got some lights counting up now. We have engines revving. When will the clutches drop? They drop now. They are off, heading down into La Source. Looks like everybody's getting a pretty decent start up at the front, but the Red Bull challenges the Mercedes into La Source, and the Red Bull leads on exit. Will the Red Bull hold on to that as they run down to La Combe, though? They make their way down into Eau Rouge, and the Renault right on the back of this three-car breakaway. Will the Red Bull be able to hold on to it? The Mercedes right there with them. Will he be able to hold? You see Ryan making a move off to the left. Who's going to be in turn one, or excuse me, down into La Combe? It will be the Red Bull of Hoopalicious leading as they make their way through 9 and down toward Bruxelles. But it looks like we have a safety car.
Safety cars already out. A couple of drivers gained penalties for cutting the corner also through the Radillon. If we take a look at our incidents here, there's a 5-second time penalty for BRL Williams for corner cutting, and it's a shame today. Alderfer, I saw him in the Shake and Bake Racing League at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, where he dominated the field, but karma has gotten the best of him today, and one of the first and the only drivers to have a penalty so far. Also, ERS Ham Newton in the Williams is going to be our first DNF of today's race with terminal damage. With the safety car now out, these drivers are going to have what will effectively be a rolling start to the beginning of this race.
Yes, we haven't seen any huge position changes just yet, but one that I think that we should definitely note is RBM Mary in the Ferrari. Started in 11 on her medium. She's made it all the way up to 7th place already, so she must have had some mega moves going on throughout those first, let's say 5 corners, because I'm sure the safety car came out right as they came up to that home. So between really the start line and turn 6, she was able to make up quite a few positions and promote herself up to 7th. As now we've seen a couple of drivers pit, she has elected to stay out. That's going to move her up another position, as well as Hoopalicious, our leader, has decided that he should box, and he's put on the hard compound tire, which you can go to the end from here. So this is a great strategy call by the Red Bull driver. As long as there's no other safety cars and he keeps his nose clean, he could win this race.
Does it beautifully, and they come through on these hard tires, which is what most of the drivers choose to do. Some of the drivers chose to stay out, and they now find themselves still with softs and mediums. And ZL Ryan is the first driver behind the safety car, still on soft tires, right now being scored in the 4th position, but obviously now he moves up into the 2nd position on the scoreboard, but still 2nd behind the safety car. BRL Pirandi also on softs, as is DRC Jared. So Alderfer, these cars have to take off like a stabbed rat from the end of the safety car period, but they also have to keep in mind that 9th through 16th, the remaining cars in this field are all on hards, so they are all playing the long game, while Ryan has now boxed himself in to playing the short run strategy.
And we've seen that paying off for Ryan in the past. He's one of those drivers that could go either or. I don't think that we're going to go back to green flag conditions this lap. We might go around another time. Most of the cars are here and packed up already, but I believe we would have gotten that call from race control that the safety car was coming in by now. Let's talk about what Ryan needs to do to try to keep himself in the fight for this win. You were saying that those 3 cars up there, really, Ryan, Pirandi, and Jared on the soft compound tires, have to break away and go as fast as they possibly can to try and make it to where they'll have somewhere around, let's say, a 12-second gap between them and Hoopalicious. So that way when they box, they'll come out probably somewhere between 8 to 10 seconds behind Hoopalicious and try to make their way through what should be traffic behind him so that way they can get back to the lead of this race. To me, Ryan is really going to have to play it like Lewis Hamilton behind this safety car. He's going to have to get right on the back of the safety car, brake very hard. He's going to have to do a lot of weaving, keep as much temperature in those tires as he can, because as you stated earlier in the broadcast, it is cloudy today. There's not a ray of sun shining down on this track anywhere that we've seen so far. So it's going to be really hard to keep temperature in these tires as they go around at this reduced speed behind this safety car. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some drivers trying so hard to keep, to keep temperature and pressure in their tires that they actually make mistakes. We've seen it before. We've seen George Russell do it just a week ago, where he actually went off and slammed the car in the wall, had to retire on their safety car. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see some people struggling to not only keep heat in the tires, but once we go back green, it won't surprise me if we see people locking up like into La Source and down into Le Combe in those heavy braking zones and really damaging their tires.
I expect to see big plumes of smoke heading into Lake Home and then coming through Bruxelles as well. Ryan has a duty not only to himself, but the competitors behind him to be quick. He has 2 laps on these soft tires where his competitors are now sitting on what are effectively worn tires, but they're hard, so they will last a longer distance. However, Alderfer, the great equalizer, the rain. The heavens are dark, and if those clouds open up and decide to pour down, this race just got turned on his head.
And I agree with you 100%. And if it does indeed do that, we don't know as the commentators, because unfortunately no one has a message to say whether this is a possible rain race or if it's going to be dry and cloudy the whole way through. As a safety car, we've just gotten the issue made from race control. The safety car is headed in, so Ryan's slowing it down considerably, backing up the pack. You can see everybody behind him swerving. The front 4 really trying to get their tires heated up. RBM Mary, the first car up front running that harder tire on the mediums. It'll be a real surprise to see how long those mediums last. It'll be a real surprise if we see that Ferrari make its way past the softer runners here in the early stages. But as we wait to see Ryan take off, I wonder if some of the guys in the back might have compromised their race by getting on the hard compound tire if the rain is coming. And now Ryan has taken off. Ryan with a good launch. He got himself a couple of car lengths between he and Pirandi. Let's see as they exit. He's going to have a few car lengths, but he gets on the loud pedal and he gets a little loose. GSR Axe actually gets on the loud pedal and half spun. We can see him perpendicular to the rest of the racing field as they make their way down the front straightaway. Now coming down the short straight down into Radion and Eau Rouge. Let's see how they do coming up through here. We're going to pan back through the field. Just watch as they go up through here. Chandler Seda deep in the field now, running 11th after he was running right at the head of the field. He has stepped out to try and go around BRL Neymar, and he does. Neymar doesn't look like he's going to contest that down into the braking zone, but a big plume of smoke as they entered the corner from a car out in front of them. Let's look back up toward the front. Mary still running in 4th. She hasn't lost a whole lot of time to the soft runners in front, but she has fallen back by about a second. Up in front of her, DRC Jared still hanging on behind Pirandi and Ryan, but Pirandi really not allowing Ryan any breathing room. He's only 4/10 off of him, but he gets a lockup as they make their way through campus. That's gonna hurt his tires. He's gonna have to watch out for that.
One driver who's really turning the screw is Hoopalicious in the Red Bull in 8th place. He's now behind Deer Hunter in the mediums, and he's got 2 laps less of wear on his hards than Deer Hunter in the Racing Point has on those medium tires. So now he's going to get the tow down the straight into Blanchimont, and he's going to look for the pass headed into chicane. That would be the first pass we see one of these hard-tired drivers make. Hoopalicious on the outside into chicane. The Racing Point locks tires up. Ryan sets a new fastest lap of a $1:45 with 40 tenths, and Hoopalicious completes the pass down the straight into La Source. Alderfer, brave move by the Red Bull.
It's a brave move for sure, but he is on that harder compound tire. We have seen Hoopalicious in the past be one of the drivers under safety car that is able to get that heat into his tires and retain it while they're doing that reduced pace. So it doesn't surprise me that he's able to make moves early. Going down the Kemmel Straight, though, RBM Mary's just been passed by the Williams of ABR Braps. And now Braps, with a bit of a lockup, could this bring Mary back into the fight? No, Mary will hold off in 5th for now. But now we have, excuse me, ABR Braps up in 4th, and he's on the soft compound tire. Will he be able to run down the drivers in front of him? He really needs to, because now all 4 cars on the softest compound are out at the front. Can they make a huge breakaway and try to get themselves into contention? Because so far it looks to me like Hoopalicious in the Red Bull is still in command of this race. On the harder compound tire, he can go to the end from here, and he's already running in 7th, only about 5 seconds behind the lead.
Hoopalicious behind Mean Fern up ahead in that Alpha Tauri. Mean Fern with 4 laps of wear on his medium tires, 2 more than Hoopalicious in the Red Bull. Now gets the toe down the straight, and just like 1 lap ago when he passed Deer Hunter, will go into Blanchimont in a full chase. This time he won't be able to make the pass into chicane, but coming out of La Source down into Radillon, he will have the advantage being on less worn tires. But I'm noticing he's starting to lock them up. Alderfer, one driver who has been good to her tires is RBM Mary. She is still applying the pressure to Baraps up ahead in the Williams, but Baraps must manage his tire wear also. Being that he's on soft tires and well behind the leaders, he could jeopardize his race strategy if he goes too hard, too fast. Out of Radillon and down the Kemmel Straight, Mary is poised to take 4th place.
Well, let's talk about that, because I don't believe DRS has been activated yet. She's doing everything that she possibly can, but she is not catching the Williams as they go into Le Comte. But let's talk about how she is on that harder compound tire, and she is now staying right here in DRS range of Baraps. It will not surprise me if next lap Baraps gets a huge lockup down there in Brussels. Going through No Name now, he doesn't seem to have any grip issues on exit, so the Williams must still be planted and have plenty of grip. But we see he hasn't made up any time on the cars in front of him. He's not catching DRC Jared, he's not catching Ryan or Pirandi. He's pretty much just hanging out here as we see him going deep in quite a few of these corners. That is going to bring Mary right back up to him, as DRS will be available this time by. And looking back up toward the front, these guys are still all running in a 3-car breakaway. We have Ryan at the front with Pirandi right behind him. Pirandi's going to have DRS this time around. He doesn't have a lot of ERS charge, though, left in the battery. It looks like he's been using quite a bit of it just to try to keep up with Ryan. Let's see how Jared's doing. Jared has quite a bit of battery charge left, and DRS has now been made available, as we see both Pirandi and Jared opening their DRS flaps on the rear wing as they went down to La Source. Now they head down toward Radillon. Let's ride on board with Pirandi. Will he be close enough this time to turn on open? Again, my apologies, ladies and gentlemen. When the new gen console is released, it's the first thing I'm buying. But as we see, RBM Mary is now up into 4th. Baraps has lost connection to this race session, so it's really unfortunate for the Williams driver. But look at who's climbing their way up through it. It's now right behind RBM Mary. It is the 2nd place starter. Hoopalicious in the Red Bull is now going to have DRS as they come out of Eau Rouge, and they will top the hill, and the DRS will open, and it will not surprise me if we see the Red Bull sitting pretty out in front of RBM Mary. Has everybody from 3rd up made the mistake and stayed on the wrong tire? Will Hoopalicious win this race? I think he will. I think it's not even a question anymore.
He's got an excellent advantage headed into Lake Home. He's got the great run coming out of the Kemmel Straight, and now out of Lake Home headed down towards Bruxelles. He's worked his way up to the 4th position after putting on those hard tires. DRC Jared now 7/10 behind Perandi, who finds himself 4/10. I'm sorry, this is to the leader. The interval between the drivers is 4/10 between 1st and 2nd, 3/10 between 2nd and 3rd. Hoopalicious another 5 1/2 seconds behind Jared, but it's starting to dwindle slowly. Jared on these hard tires is faster than the top 3 on these soft tires. It's going to be 14 laps remaining the next time they cross the line, Alderfer. So now is the make or break point for these drivers. Do they hope for weather and stay out with these slower lap times, or do they expect Hoopalicious' speed to wear off as his hard tires start to become more worn?
I honestly don't think his tires are going to wear off as fast as some people may think. I've been riding on board, and all of you watching the stream just saw whenever he exited Stedlow. When he exited, most guys are exiting that corner in 4th. He actually short shifted very, very early to 5th and allowed the car to just roll through the corner. He didn't put a whole lot of power down. He's not getting a whole lot of wheel spin. I haven't seen him locking much, or I haven't seen him locking the front tires very much here lately. So he's taking very good care of these hard compound tires. You can also see, as he just made the run up the hill, that he did not have any oversteer. The car was very planted, very controlled. We just saw a couple drivers go in for their pit stop. Ryan and Perandi both swap over to the medium tire, but they are very far behind Hoopalicious now. We'll see DRC Jared go in probably this time by or next time by, and Hoopalicious is going to take the lead of this race, and unless we have another safety car and he makes a mistake, he's going to be the winner. He has gone with the perfect strategy today. He's made the perfect decision, in my opinion.
It's going to be a game of who's got the speed at the end of the race. Jared's still leading by 6.1 seconds. He's the only driver of the top 3 that did not pit. Ryan and Perandi come down and swap off their soft tires for Pirelli mediums, so they'll be looking to go to the end of the race on these mediums, provided the weather doesn't turn more wet. Now, RBM Mary, who's only 8 laps on her medium tires, she could be looking to go 3/4 of the race distance and then put in absolute blistering lap times on softs when the rest of her opponents are sitting on hard and medium tires. Multiple strategies at play, and you can see Mary already behind Hoopalicious, and she's still keeping the pressure, but Hoopalicious now starting to pull away, playing the long con on those hard tires. He's now in 1st place.
And RBM Mary having plenty of overtake power left in that battery. Will she use it to try to make a move for the lead here as they go up the hill and down onto the Kemmel Straight now? She's going to have DRS. Will she try to get it? She hasn't hit the overtake button, which makes me think that she's just okay with sitting here. A very smart move by a new driver to our series, making a very good decision in my opinion. Decided to just sit here right along behind Hoopalicious, put the laps in while holding great pace. I wonder if she is going to box for the softs later in this race and have tremendous pace versus everybody else.
GSRX getting a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings there. Alderfer, I'm assuming that she's going to do so. As I predicted, Ryan and Perandi did swap out their soft tires for the mediums, so it could be the reverse strategy where Mary is going to swap her mediums.
Well, we've
for
got a huge
softs.
fight going on here for 8th and 9th and 10th, as we just saw on the screen. Master Berserk and BRL Williams going too wide through Puan and No Name, and they went too wide through the beginning of campus as well. I hate to break in on you there, but that's something that just had to be said. Beautiful racing done by those 3 drivers just then.
All there on hard tires on this 10th lap of the scheduled 22, and these are drivers that also need to monitor their tire wear. Also, being that they're on hards, they are planning to go the rest of the race distance. Aldifer Mean Fern in 4th place in that AlphaTauri has 9 laps on his mediums, where Mary now has 10 laps on her medium tires, but still keeping an okay distance to the leader up ahead, Hoopalicious. Mary does not need to go any faster than she is, as she needs to put these mediums on the track for as long as possible. Parandi on these mediums now has the fastest lap of the race.
Well, as you look back toward the front at RBM Mary, she's in this short train of about 4 cars from Hoopalicious down to Mean Fern, as Mean Fern has just gotten passed by Chandler. She's doing very good. She's doing everything right. Oh, and she's spun out.
Oh, no.
Oh, she's lost it on the exit of Lacombe. That is very unfortunate for Ferrari drivers. She was doing so well holding that car under her. She had a great strategy, in my opinion, to start 11th and finish probably somewhere around 5th or maybe 6th. So very unfortunate to see her fall down the order just due to the car just not agreeing with the amount of throttle that she wanted it to have. So we'll have to pay attention, see what she does now. Will she box this time around for the hard compound tire? Are those rears roasted now? We'll have to see what happens. If you wouldn't mind keeping an eye on that, Rick. Hoopalicious has now got himself a breakaway of about 2.5 seconds between himself and B-Dunk. B-Dunk has Chandler hunting him down, though. Chandler made the move on Mean Fern earlier this lap and has since dropped Mean Fern like a bag of rocks as he is trying to move himself forward. Will he be able to catch Hoopalicious? He seems to have amazing pace here right now, and it seems like he might have better pace than Hoop does at this moment in the race. Do you think Hoop might just be saving his tires a little bit more and Chandler's on a push?
Mary now comes down pit road. Aldifer, I do believe Hoopalicious has to save his tires to the end. He's on hard, and he made that decision during the first safety car. He immediately took off those worn qualifying soft tires for hard tires, so his plan is to go the race distance. Otherwise, if he plans to go to softs, he needs to make that decision now. Any of these drivers currently still on mediums, if they can save the tires to the end, it would be miraculous. But they must either make the change to softs within the next 2 laps or prepare for a very ill-handling race car, just as we saw Mary have a spill in her mission win-out Ferrari out of Lake Home. Mary does come down pit road, and she's now on the soft tires and fresh soft tires as well. Multiple drivers have time penalties, so she's going to be trying to overtake them, not necessarily on the racetrack, but on the timing board as well. Multiple warnings for these drivers so far. BRL Williams, the only driver to incur a time-second penalty at the end of this race. Lots of strategies, lots of stories all around. Literally, Aldifer at the very front and at the very back of this Belgian Grand Prix field. Hoopalicious now does a quick left-right out of chicane. Now he's coming down the front straight one more time into La Source on lap lucky number 13 of the scheduled 22. So there's 10 laps remaining in this race, Aldifer. Do these drivers on medium tires stretch it to the end, or do you think they come in for softs? Jared now has the fastest lap of the race.
Well, a lot of these drivers in Tier 1 do have the capability to take tires a lot further into a race than what Pirelli says that they should. It wouldn't surprise me if we see the likes of Mean Fern or Deer Hunter make it to about lap 19 or 20 before they decide to give up. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they made it all the way to the end of the race. Deer Hunter, having himself a very quiet race so far, has made his way up into 5th place. He's going to have to box at some, probably around lap 18 or 19. But Ryan, Jared, and Perandi, it would not surprise me to see them go to the end on their medium tires. They pitted right around the window, but they also had that little bit of extra time on those tires given to them by the safety car, running about 2 laps at a very low rate of speed. Didn't take a lot of wear, didn't make any more draining on the tires. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them go all the way to the end. Same with Braps. Braps will go to the end. However, Mary will not. She's boxed and put on the soft compound tire. I don't know if she's going to be able to make that tire last long enough to go to the end of this race. She might definitely pick up the fastest lap having those soft tires on, but I don't see it really panning out for her in any way, to be honest. We look
Mary
back.
did put on... My apologies. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we look back now at Ryan and Williams having their own little duel, and Ryan has brought Jared along with him through the chicane. Ryan made a pass on BRL Williams and is now right behind his teammate. Will his teammate yield to him as they go down the straightaway? They'll come down the straightaway and run into Radion and Rouge. It does not look like his teammate's going to yield to him here, but it does look as though his teammate's going to have to do it going down the Kemmel Straight. Excuse me. We see NZL Ryan making the move on the left-hand side. His teammate does let him go without challenge, and he falls back in line behind his teammate. Will he try to follow his teammate now? Will his teammate help set his pace, or is Master Berserk just on that slower tire now? He's on the hard compound tire that are much older than what Ryan is running, as we see Jared make a move on Williams, and all these drivers from about 8th all the way back down to 12th are in very close proximity to each other. Very, very tight racing here. That's really going to obscure the front wing of these cars and the barge boards not being able to work in the way they are intended, especially for BRL Perandi, as he is right behind BRL Williams. You can see him putting that Renault into the corner a little earlier than Williams. He's having to do that so that he can keep a little bit of downforce on the right front of that front wing, so that way he can actually turn through the corner a little better than what he would be just being behind the racing point of Williams. We see now that he is not, now he's activated the button. He's going to try to make a move down the inside into the chicane, and he's going to make that one pretty easy. Oh, and then Williams is going to run right into the back of him. Just a little love tap there to the gearbox by Williams, as Deer Hunter has now and Meanfern have both decided it's time to box and get off of those tires they started this race on. And we have another yellow flag in Sector 3. Oh, that's going to be a Ferrari. Who is that?
It's RBM Mary coming down the straight into Blanchimont, Alderfer.
Unfortunate to see her having the issue with the car now. She was running so well earlier on. I wonder if that spin that she had up there on top of the hill has caused her to just lose a little bit of confidence in the car, and now she's just struggling with it in every corner as we see her going into pit lane again. Unfortunate for Ferrari, as one of their drivers runs in 7th and the other runs in 15th. But Jared doing very well. He's already right up to the back of Berserk.
I can tell you that Mary did have that spin. She was pushing the car extremely hard, chasing down GSR-Ax and ABR Bratz. She was just 1 second behind Ax, as she had gotten close to him on the lap prior. So my prediction is that she was just going a little too fast on those soft tires, and it bit her once again. But she does also have the fastest lap of this race. Yellow flag comes out in Sector 1. That will be picked up shortly here. One thing I also noticed is, as predicted, the other two drivers that were sitting on those medium tires, Mean Fern and Deer Hunter, have now swapped to the soft tires, as has GSR-Ax. So there was the reverse strategy from drivers that started on the softs, drivers that started on the mediums, now on the soft Pirelli compounds, and they'll be looking to go full throttle for the remainder of this race. Hoopalicious still leads by 4.3 seconds.
Oh, there was just contact between the Alpha Tauri and the racing point of Deer Hunter and Meanfern, we saw those two battling hard as they went into the chicane. The AlphaTauri went to turn in, and the racing point was there. The AlphaTauri then decided to box, so I wonder if he was dealing with a little bit of damage that he must have picked up somewhere and didn't get repaired, or if he picked it up on that first lap being on that new tire. Very strange to see Meanfern in the pits just after he pitted the lap prior, so we'll have to keep our eye on that and watch what's happening. Meanwhile, at the front, Chandler has not been able to make up any ground on Hoopalicious. Hoopalicious still has a decent 4.5-second lead out front from Chandler. Chandler in the Alfa Romeo trying his hardest to catch up to the back of Hoopalicious, but remember, Hoopalicious looked like he was short shifting very often on exiting these corners. We now see Chandler doing the same thing. He short shifted to 5th very early there so he could put the power down and not get the rear end to step out on that car. So is Hoopalicious now in his push stage, and Chandler is having to watch his tires to make it to the end of this race. With B-Dunk only a 2 2/10 behind him, it wouldn't surprise me if we see B-Dunk fall off a little bit here from Chandler as this race goes deeper and deeper, but just 2.5 seconds back from them is Ryan, the pole sitter for this race, as he makes his way down to La Source. Only 2.5 seconds back from the McLaren of B-Dunk. Will he be a factor within these closing laps? We've only got 6 to go. Will he be able to catch up to B-Dunk or Chandler? Will he be able to catch Hoopalicious is my big question, James.
To answer your first question, coming out of Blanchimont, Hoopalicious is on his push stage, but you can see that the gap is now shrinking to 4 seconds. To answer your second question, Chandler Seta won in that Alfa Romeo. He is closing, and you can see he's just out of view as Hoopalicious enters Bruxelles and Chandler leaves Les Combes. Now leaving Bruxelles, the gap is 4 seconds as it was down to under 3. So it's going back and forth, Alderfer. It's a pendulum. GSR acts in the AlphaTauri, now goes purple for the race. He has your fastest lap. My eyes are on that black Mercedes AMG. NZL Ryan, who now finds himself 2 seconds back of B-Dunk. He continues to get closer and closer. 1 lap ago, the interval to the leader was 8.5 seconds. It's now down to sub 8. So Ryan, who is on the more fresh medium tires, is on a blistering pace to get into the podium. Not only does Hoopalicious have to monitor his wear over the next 5.5 laps, Alderfer, he has to monitor the Mercedes of NZL Ryan.
And you wonder if that is something that he's monitoring. Does he have somebody on track near Ryan that can tell him where Ryan is, what kind of pace he's running, whether Hoopalicious needs to push or not? Ryan, though, has been continually pushed by DRC Jared in the Ferrari. The 2 former teammates were both at the Mercedes camp. Somewhere along the past few weeks while I was out, we've had a change. Jared, as Hoopalicious has left the session. Our leader has left the session. He is now going to get run down as his car is now going to be off the pace. Very unfortunate for him. Hoopalicious no longer in the session, and you can see he's already lost half a second to Chandler. Chandler's going to reel him in, might pass him by the end of the lap. Chandler will be continually moving at his pace while Hoopalicious moves at a slower rate of speed. Hoopalicious now back in the session. Will he get back in that car and be able to put the hammer down and try to keep that gap of about 3 seconds back to Chandler? Big problems there for Jared. You can see on your screen, Jared pushing very hard to try to continually pressure Ryan into making a mistake. The Ferrari is doing everything it possibly can to stay on the gearbox of the Mercedes, but just behind Ryan is the other big player in this race. BRL Pirandi in the Renault has stuck within a second of these 2 drivers right in front of him as we see him get a little bit of understeer going through that turn as he's making his way out and now down to Blanchimont. Rick, what's one of the things that you're going to be watching here right in the closing stages of this race? We've got a lot of close battles going on track currently between 8th and 12th. They're all in a train too. So what are we
Hoopalicious in the pits. Hoopalicious has come down into the pits on these hard tires, and now with 4 laps to go about to be 3 laps left in this race. Hoopalicious now has his car in pit road. He swapped out the hard tires for the softs, and he's still in pit road. What a long pit stop. Not sure what
that looks like he was serving
there.
That looks like he was serving a time penalty. Sorry to break in on you, but that might have been him serving a time penalty. And to be honest, I wonder if he tried to take back control of that car and it was still an AI in control of it and it went into the pit lane. We have seen that happen quite often in the later stages of the race. If somebody loses connection to the server, their AI will immediately box for a new set of tires. We don't know why. It's just something that Codemasters has written into the game. So Hoopalicious goes from dominating this race with a perfect strategy all the way down to the last points paying position of 10th. And there's only 3 laps left in this race to really do anything. He's more than 10 seconds behind the closest car in front. So Chandler Cieta has just been gifted the win of this race as long as he can hold on to the car and keep B-Dunk that solid 2.7 seconds behind him.
Oh, I don't think anything is that certain in racing, but the next 3 laps at Spa-Francorchamps will tell. Chandler Cieta leading in this red and white Alfa Romeo as Vern is handed a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings. B-Dunk finds himself 2.8 seconds behind as Chandler now leaves Blanchimont, and DRC Jared hot on the heels of that papaya-colored McLaren headed into the final chicane. Deer Hunter handed a 3-second penalty for multiple warnings, and NZL Ryan finds himself now 4 seconds back of the leader, where the gap was once 8 seconds. Alderfer, 3 laps to go at Spa. Chandler has to hang on to the car, but that Mercedes continues to press, and second place is well within his grasp.
Well, you're talking about the Mercedes continuing to press. What about the Ferrari in front of that Mercedes? That Ferrari has been literally just tailing the gearbox and following the Mercedes through the field since they both pitted on the same lap, but the Ferrari has made the move on NZL Ryan, has now made the move on that beautiful Zach Brown-controlled McLaren, as he has now promoted himself up into second. There's 3 seconds on track between he and the leader. DRC Jared looking to have plenty of pace left in these medium compound tires. I think that this could be a fight at the very end of this race. He might be able to catch up within the last 2 laps to get up there with Chandler and try to make a move going down into Le Combe. Let's see, he was 3 seconds behind him as they came into Sector 2. It's now 2.8. He's gained a couple of tenths. Now it's 2.7. How much closer can he get? But don't forget about Ryan sitting back there beautifully positioned in 4th place behind the McLaren of B-Dunk. B-Dunk has had a wonderful race so far, promoted himself well. He's sitting in the podium positions now, but he's on very old hard compound tires. I don't think he's going to be able to hold off the likes of NZL Ryan or perhaps even BRL Pirandi, with both of them being on newer medium compound tires. But those mediums are going to start dying. They are going to start hitting that big phase of no grip whatsoever. But we see these drivers have such control over these cars. None of them in the shot, just them on camera, had any wheel spin on exit of the chicane. They go down into La Source. The McLaren makes a small lockup, but can Ryan make the move? Will BRL Pirandi get close enough to make the move as well? Pirandi does not have a lot of battery left for charging down the Kemmel Straight. He's going to lose a little bit of time, actually. Looked like he had to get out of the throttle somewhere. But it's going to be B-Dunk trying to hold off NCL Ryan, but Ryan's going to have plenty of pace with the rear wing of that Mercedes wide open, and Jared not having enough pace to break away from them throughout that straightaway. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see Ryan and Jared fighting. And now only 2.4 seconds separate the front 2, but it looks to me like Chandler just needs to keep the car underneath himself, keep the G-forces down to a manageable level, and he'll do just fine to win this race, James.
2 seconds now, the gap. DRC Jared is going to press everything he's got. He must be on full charge. He must be on full tilt, foot through the floorboard and chasing down that Alfa Romeo. NZL Ryan now finds himself 2.8 seconds behind the leader, but he's only 1 second behind DRC Jared. Both tires have right around the similar amount of wear. Chandler Cieta, now coming out of Blanchimont, has just 1 more lap ahead if he can hang on to that dwindling lead.
Chandler making his way through the final chicane on this lap. He now starts the final lap of this race with a second and a half between himself and DRC Jared. The two strategies coming together. Chandler Sieta boxed very early for a brand new set of hard compound tires under the safety car at lap 2. I believe he boxed for them on lap 3. We went back racing on lap 4. He's been on these same tires since then. DRC Jared did push on his soft compound tires, stuck behind NZL Ryan for quite a long time. They boxed, came back out on track. DRC Jared was able to pass Ryan a couple laps back. Now we have a yellow flag in Sector 3. I believe that's going to be Meanburn has retired from this race. No big questions happening there, but DRC Jared now within a second of Chandler Sieta. Can these medium compound tires run down the hard compound running Alfa Romeo? It's very close between the two Ferrari powered cars, the sister teams, as they run down through Pouan. Chandler with a decent gap. Can he keep this lead? Can he keep this win? The Ferrari will be able to break much later. Look at the closing speed of the Ferrari as they run now through campus and down to Stavola. It's going to be a fight coming out of this corner right here. Who can get the better run? Chandler with the rear end stepping out a little bit as he gets on the loud pedal. DRC Jared now on the button. Will he be able to catch up to Chandler Sieta? This is going to come all the way down to the final chicane. He still has the overtake turned on. He's slowly catching Chandler, but Chandler looks as though he may have this in the bag. One braking zone left to go. As we see Jared chucking it in there, he's going to try to make something happen here on exit. Two different tire compounds, but Jared's going to get a little bit he's going to get a little bit of oversteer on exit. That's going to give Chandler Sieta in the Alfa Romeo the win of this race. DRC Jared gave it everything he possibly could and was able to come home second. He should be proud of that, but if I were him, I'd still be a little upset watching that Alfa Romeo run around on the cooldown lap that close to him. NZL Ryan played it well, started pole, had a little bit of a hiccup, got caught up in traffic, wasn't able to make his way back to the front. He's going to come home in third. BRL Parandi with a clean, pretty uneventful race, to be honest, for the Renault driver. Comes home in fourth. B-Dunk able to retain fifth place, even though he did have a time penalty that he incurred on exit of No Name a few laps back. BRL Williams, we saw him fighting earlier on deep in the field, able to promote himself back up to sixth. A decent day for he and Racing Point. As the Haas finishes behind him, BRL Neymar, not bad for him. Num One Fin Fan, a driver that we have not mentioned really at all this race, really kept to himself, was able to finish in 8th place. Hoopalicious, the driver, in my opinion, that got this race stolen from him. He was leading. He had a great lead of 4 seconds over Chandler whenever his connection to the race server dropped. And that saw him drop all the way down to 10th place as his AI just randomly pitted the car as he was rejoining the session. But my driver of the day is definitely going to be DRC Jared. I'm going to have to agree with Codemasters on this one. Wouldn't you say, James? He had a great performance today, made all the right calls for his own race to get back to the front, but Chandler able to come out on top.
My driver of the day is going to be Chandler Sieta, who at the end of it all came out on the top step of the podium after starting in what seemed to be a position where he couldn't win this race. Finds himself in a beautiful way to get in the lead and holds off a furious DRC Jared in that Ferrari in second place. NZL Ryan, despite the 3-second penalty, hangs on to the third step on the podium, and as Hoopalicious finished in that Red Bull on the soft tires, he ends up with tonight's fastest lap of the race.
And Hoopalicious put in a great lap on the soft compound tire with a decent fuel load, the track being very well rubbered in. A 1:43.6 is not a bad lap time for this race at all, as we are getting all the drivers from the podium loaded into our party. We'll take a look at the drivers that finished down the order a little further. Master Berserk finishes for Mercedes in 10th. Deer Hunter brings it home for Racing Point in 11th. And ABR Baraps in the Williams in 12th. GSR X for Alpha Tauri in 14th, and Meanfern in 15th. RBM Mary, the driver from Ferrari, we saw doing very well early on, had that spin, looked like they just didn't trust the car the rest of the race. Boss Cookie finishes in 16th, and the only driver to actually DNF this race, ERS Ham Newton, with that unfortunate incident that he incurred at the top of the hill on the first lap. We're getting some of the drivers from the podium in here now. I believe that we do have DRC Jared and Ryan and Chandler Cieta, but we also had to bring Hoopalicious in. Hoopalicious, I'm going to start with you. You had a very good race going for yourself today. You were well up the field, running at the lead, and you were just seemed like you were doing everything right. And then Codemasters just decided that they didn't want you to have this one today, it seemed like. What happened there? Well, it's unfortunate that that happened to you. We did just want to get your opinion on it. We didn't know if it was something out of your control or if you were looking at something in the race director and slipped into the wrong button. You had a great race today. You really could have won this race, but we wanted to get your thoughts. Moving on, we'll look down to our podium drivers who all had different strategies. DRC Jared and NZL Ryan both pitted after everybody else. They boxed around lap 8 and 9 for their medium tires and took them all the way to the end. Jared, you followed NZL Ryan for quite a distance, and then you were able to pass him. We didn't get to catch that on stream. We were paying attention to something else at the time. So, Ryan, you led Jared out of pit lane. You led him for most of the race, and then it seemed like at one point he just got out in front of you and you weren't able to claw back. Did I lose the stream again? No, I didn't.
You talking to me, Jared?
I'm talking to you, Ryan.
Alright, no, okay. Yeah, no, I just didn't want to hold Jared up because my rear end decided to leave. So, let him get on with his day. I was just focused on beating Perondi, which I did, so it's good.
Well, it seemed like y'all had a decent battle going on. Jared, you finished in second place today. You were so close to the win. I feel like if you would have had one more lap or even a few more corners, it could have came right down to the end of the front wing. Just talk us through that final stint. Seemed like you pushed so tremendously hard for the last 5 laps of that race.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say. I mean, I just didn't have the battery to get to Chandler, so GG to him. But yeah, it was a pretty solid race. Haven't had one for a while, so yeah.
Well, congratulations on the podium. We hope to see you back next week in the Ferrari doing the good work that you do. Moving on to the winner of the race in the Alfa Romeo, Chandler Cieta, you brought all the stops today. You stopped under the safety car and put on the hard compound tire, which really surprised me that you chose that strategy because it's not something that I would normally see you do. What made you go with that today to try to get up toward the front and eventually win the race?
Well, firstly, I did have an orange wing. I went into Ryan at start, and I thought it was my fault. And then apparently maybe Bureau Williams hit me because I thought it was my fault. But like at the same time, I was wondering how I did it. I didn't understand how I did it, but I didn't feel a hit. So I don't know. I look back, but anyway, even if I didn't have wing damage, I probably would have went in lap 1 anyway because apparently going to the hards at the start, if they're safety cars, the better option, and today it proved it was. But yeah, one more lap and that was it. I was really my tires were dead and I was trying to save myself from getting one more warning. So yeah, I guess just the wing damage and just knowing the strat is what made me decide that.
All right, so devil's advocate, because I always like to play that part. Do you feel like you could have caught Hoopalicious if he wouldn't have had that connection issue and then his AI boxed for him? Do you feel like you could have ran him down and passed him on track today, or do you feel like Hoopalicious kind of got robbed of one?
No, I definitely would not have caught him. I could have maybe brought the gap down a little bit. Like, I started backing off, but then I started using a little ERS and closed up a little bit. But I don't think that definitely was not possible. That was 100% his win right there, and then it was just taken away. But no, P2 would have been where I would have finished.
Well, a win's a win no matter how you get it, am I right?
Yeah, I guess so. It doesn't mean a whole lot for the championship, but yeah, guess it's a win.
Well, congratulations on your win today. Congratulations to all the podium drivers and really everybody from Tier 1 putting on an amazing race today. James, what really stuck out to you today? It seems like there were so many things happening on track, we couldn't keep up with all of it.
RBM Mary, for one, Alder, I'm very, very impressed with the new driver, how she managed to have a great grip on her tires up until the spill out of Lake Home. She was doing exceptionally well in the top 5, and she even was on pace to get the fastest lap of the race. Obviously, Chandler being where he was in the right position you need to be right place, right time. That's absolutely a big principle of racing, and that's the reason he's on the top step of the podium today. So much to look forward to in the coming weeks as well. It's been a great race today.
And I couldn't agree with you more. It was great to have you in the booth with me today. I hope to make this a permanent position if you would like to. And to have you in the booth with me permanently, I think would be not only a blessing but a pleasure. It has been nothing but a pleasure bringing this amazing, amazing racing to you today from the BRL group. It's great to see so many drivers that turn out every week to this race. And we can't wait to see all of you next week at the same time on Saturdays, 10 p.m. Eastern Time here in the States. Be sure to join us next week. I'm sure it'll be another cracker of a race. Hope to see all of you there. And meanwhile, while we're offline, be sure to check in on all of our other videos from all of our other tiers. There's 5 of them running on the Xbox console. And be sure to watch all of them because all of them have their own great racecraft in their own way. See all